if you're a diehard airsofter, you're crazy excited that Cap Edge Paintball is getting into airsoft. So I'm stoked. I don't think they really need to do anything different with their marketing or their advertising. I'm willing to bet you can pretty much just take what you were doing with paintball and just change it to airsoft. Keep you like the posters they make are so pretty. So from like a marketing or an advertising standpoint, you don't really have to do anything different. Just keep doing what you're doing. If you wanted to, you could start a second Instagram for your airsoft field. So like you have like Cap Edge Paintball, which is the normal Instagram, and then you have Cap Edge Airsoft. You could do that to kind of keep those two things separate, or you could just kind of do what HSP does, or Hollywood Sports Park, and they just use the same Instagram for both. I think it would be a better idea if you had the time to manage two Instagram profiles. I think it would be a better idea to open or to start a Capital Edge Airsoft. Personal opinion. La la la. Scrolling through notes. From looking at their current fields. Now, keep in mind, I'm not sure if they're planning on creating new fields or making modifications to existing fields, but if you look at their website, which I did, their current existing fields, I think you have two that you could easily start as an airsoft field right now. Pending like the difference between what would happen if paint and BBs mix in the ground. Like I don't know if anyone does that. There could be a reason, or they just don't want to mix the two. I don't know. Anyway, Village, dude. Go on the Cap Edge Paintball website and look at the Village, and tell me that doesn't make you squeal like a small child. I want to play airsoft on the Village's map on that field. It looks so fun. I think it would. It also appears to be, and they specifically mention this in the description. I think that is the closest. The most CQB friendly field they have, meaning I think that field offers the tightest engagements. I believe, personal opinion, as someone that has been to multiple airsoft fields, as someone that helps manage an airsoft field, as someone that has picked the brains of large airsoft figures to include field managers and owners, I believe you want close engagements, because the closer the engagement, theoretically, the less the more you're going to reduce the probability of someone accusing another player of not calling a hit. And that is, for whatever reason, that's just a sin in airsoft. Like, the guy doesn't call his hit. Just whatever. But I like close fields because usually that reduces the amount of players calling no hits. So since we added more structures to the current layout of the Airsoft Ministry, we have had less players say, hey, that guy's not calling it. It still happens because it's airsoft and people are stupid and they suck. But it happens less. So there's that. That, and also the closer the engagement, usually the faster the gameplay. And my ADD just doesn't like to walk. It's just me. Coming in with the solid silver medal, Urban. Urban looks like a lot of fun for the same reason as the Village looks like a lot of fun. Urban looks a little bit more spaced out. I think Urban would be the farthest you could be apart for your engagements and still kind of really get away with it, with still being effective engagements and things like that. Especially with most airsoft rifles are pretty much not that great beyond 50 feet, 100 feet. Even then, you're kind of like, check the wind. Anything beyond 50 feet, you really got to kind of walk them in. Usually, maybe more, maybe less. I don't know. But that's what I like. Spools looks like it would be a challenge because the rounded spools. Because if a guy plants his feet on the exposed part of a spool because it's circular, you get shot. If some guy's shooting him in the foot, guy's not going to call it because he's wearing boots or whatever. He doesn't feel it in the foot, or he thinks it's a ricochet. It's going to cause it. I think it would. I think the feet issue would cause problems. As far as no hits, as far as not calling it. So I wouldn't do spools. Playground looks like it would hurt my lower back because it looks like it has a lot of waist or chest high structures, so it looks like I'm going to have to crawl around a lot. I don't like doing that. I like to stand. My back hurts. So there's that. Mounds would be interesting, but it looks really spaced apart. So I think for maybe larger scale games, you could probably use mounds because it looks like it has a lot of space to it. But the more open ground you have on an airsoft field, typically the more you are encouraging players to sort of just bunch around and stand still like a bunch of scared little kittens. There's that. Boo, boo, boo. Just the village looks like an insane amount of fun. I want to play the village so hard. Honestly, I want to play turf. And I believe her name was Karen, was this when I was talking to her through some DMs. I want to play on the turf fields. And she seemed very surprised at that. But if you look at some of the indoor style of tournament play, it's very similar to like NXL. It's very fast-paced. It's fast-paced, close engagements, things like that. A lot of shoot, a lot of 5-on-5, 3-on-3s. A lot of there's implementations of snakes in some of these fields. So if you look at like Speed QB, it's basically NXL, but cheaper, because my understanding is Airsoft is the cheap younger brother to paintball, as many paintballers tell me. So I would love to play a turf field. I want to play on that turf field. That is the one that has me the most excited. It's turf, then village, then urban. That's just me. I think that would be very tournament friendly also. If you want to start getting into that aspect and having airsoft tournaments at your field, I would use turf. To be perfectly honest, I would use the smallest turf field you have. That's just me. But again, I'm turf fields. I believe I also represent a small niche of players that enjoy the tournament scene or the performance or the athletic-based aspect of Airsoft. Your average rental player or your casual weekend warrior for Airsoft, I don't think is going to be as enthusiastic about that as I am. But I could easily get you 10 to 20 players right now on my phone that could probably show them, go, hey, Cap Edge is going to let us do a private match on turf. And they'd go, bro, I'm there. One piece of advice that I would offer that I absolutely wish more fields would do, and we're trying to do this with the Airsoft Ministry, which usually forget. What I like about paintball is pros will not play against noobs. Listen to me. I love that. It's brilliant. Why don't more airsoft fields do it? We're going to try and start doing it, but we'll probably forget. I think most airsoft fields don't do it because typically an airsoft field only has one field of play. They don't have multiple fields. If you look at CQB City, it's just one big indoor field. UCA's, I believe they only have one airsoft field. And then I think they have some paintball other stuff. They just kind of let the paintballers do their thing. West Coast is kind of, I guess, the same way. But usually, it is easier to find one large field than one field that has multiple fields. Does that make sense? Makes sense. So usually the fields just get bigger. They don't get sectioned up. Why? I don't know. So I would like to keep rentals and new players separate from like tournament players. I really like that. Listen to me. Do that. What paintball does have that Airsoft doesn't is divisions. So in paintball you've got like pro, semi-pro, D2, D3, D4, D1, all that. They have categories of proficiency. They have levels. There's literally levels to the game. And certain categories will not play with or against, or they won't mingle. I like that. I'm okay with that. Otherwise, it's just you're just tech falling everyone. Getting a little wrestling term in there. Also, in Airsoft, if I got 100 players on a field, right, at my field in the Airsoft industry, which is actually usually pretty common, I have 100 players on a field. Maybe 10 of them are hardcore tournament players. I'm telling you right now, those 10 are going to dictate what happens on that field. You have to keep those 10 players separate, otherwise it's just a slaughter, and no one's going to have fun. You need to keep those tournament players playing on opposite teams, because what will happen is one tournament player will just get a real good sweep or a real good flank on like 5 or 6 players that don't know what they're doing, and those 5 or 6 players will get really upset because that one tournament player is being too aggressive, which is not a thing. It's just when someone says he's being too aggressive, what they're really saying is I'm not very good at this game and I want him to slow down and come down to my level. That's really what that means. That happens just about every Sunday. So there's that. Like, he's being too aggressive. You just suck. Just get better, bro. So there's that. So I like the divisions. I like the pros separate from rentals. Listen to me. Do that. Always do that. I don't know. And keep in mind, I don't play paintball. My sole experience with paintball, no, I think I have like 2 or 3. Several of them were the Army, when we would use Tippmann 98s for like training missions, which was, whatever. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And then my buddy shot me with a paintball gun like 12 or 13 times in the chest just because we thought it was funny and we filmed it, and I'll probably release that video at some point. But I had hair back then because I was like 15. So there's that. So I don't know how they do it in like weekend casual paintball play. Usually in the NorCal Airsoft fields, they do continuous respawn, which is you get shot, you go back, you respawn, you go back into the game. SoCal fields sometimes do more single elimination, meaning kind of like tournament style. Once you get hit, you just walk out to the dead box and just wait for the next game, which is usually like about 4 or 5 minutes away. I recommend continuous respawn matches for your airsoft fields. It is kind of what most NorCal players are used to anyway. I will do occasional single elimination games, and they're very well received. But usually the preference is continuous style because kids just want to they want to go, they want to run, they want to play, they want to shoot, they want to do the thing. They don't want to sprint and then dead stop. So continuous respawn is very ADD friendly. That's why I like it. But if you do continuous respawn games, you must clearly mark both spawn points. However many spawn points you have to clearly mark them. And then you have to clearly explain what does and does not constitute a respawn. So for instance, my field, we have 2 respawns, orange and green, or far and near. There's a series of striped bunkers, which offer protection for once you get into the respawn. So there's striped bunkers, or basically like striped walls, and then past that is a solid color wall. You have to touch that solid color wall to respawn in. Sometimes kids will touch the striped wall, go back into play, and then they get immediately shot. Well, they complain then that someone is spawn camping. Well, you're not spawn camping. You're not spawning in right in the first place. So you're the reason your own problem is happening. And then also clearly define what does and does not constitute spawn sweeping or spawn camping. Because sometimes players will be like, he's spawn trapping us. Like, no, again, you guys just aren't that good. He's just really good. He's 2 buildings away. Just if you could just suck less, that would really help your whole team. That's really what that comes down to. Looking. I think what will make or break your airsoft section of your field, which also may come down to some negotiation with your insurance, because my understanding is most fields get their rules from what their insurance guidelines tell them to do. So there is that aspect of the business to consider. But if you look at CQB City, which is in Stockton, UCA's, which is in Galt, and my field, the Airsoft Ministry, which is in Roseville, which you guys are welcome to drop into, the common rules are kind of all the same. And since most airsoft players predominantly play at those 3 fields anyway, they're already used to a certain set of rules. So if you go against the current norm of rules, you may or may not shy some business away to other fields. Because keep in mind, airsofters are predominantly field loyal. There are players at my field that will not go to Stockton because they just want to play at my field. There are players in UCA's that will not play at my field because they're loyal to UCA's. It doesn't matter what the event, it doesn't matter. If that field is closed, they just don't play that day. I don't know if that's also seen in paintball, but that's kind of how it is sometimes in airsoft field. You don't really see a lot of players mixing and mingling with other fields. They have their home field, and then that's it. So, for AEG rifles or electronic rifles, we use 400 FPS for AEG electronic rifles. That's kind of standard. HPA pistols, shotguns, and all HPA guns, which are the ones connected to the hose line and the tanks, usually the FPS is set for those is 350. Now, the reason that HPA rifles are generally set at 350 and AEG rifles are not is because of kinetic energy. They call it joules, kinetic energy. So if a rifle, so you take an HPA rifle and you chrono it at 400 FPS with .20 BBs, which is the standard of BBs to use for chronoing, then the kinetic energy of that projectile is going to be stronger on impact than than my rifle, which is electronic, which is usually 400 and 400. There's no real the kinetic energy doesn't really change with the FPS on the AEG rifles. Get with someone that is much smarter than me on that. I don't tech. I don't know how to fix them. I have a very caveman understanding of the actual inner workings of guns. I just know how to rip kids apart. So there's that. No, don't. For the love of God, I am begging you to not have an MED. No MEDs. MEDs are terrible. Some fields, maybe you could implement an MED, like the minimum, like if you wanted to have like a new player or rental player field and have like a 10-foot minimum engagement distance or like a safety distance, like you got to be this far away from a player before you can shoot them. Okay, that's fine. But if you look at most fields anyway, even with zero, even if they have like a 5 or a 10-foot MED, if you and I turn a corner, it's a natural reaction. Go, pow! That's just natural reaction. Zero MEDs, it's a lot easier to enforce. Minimum engagement distance is very hard because if you have like a 5 or a 10-foot safety kill distance, who's measuring that? How do you know if I'm 5.5 feet away or 4.5 feet away? So I don't like the MED rule because I, as someone who was a police officer for 8 years, find it is very hard to properly and effectively enforce that rule. So that's why I don't like MEDs. That's a personal opinion. And if you look at the Airsoft Ministry, no one has a problem with that. No, with the safety or with a zero MED. Our bang kills or our verbal kills are optional. We don't really have. We explain our rules very specific. I've collected a very specific set of rule briefings. We don't have problems with it. We really don't. If we tell kids right off the bat, if you don't like it, you need to leave. We don't. Our field doesn't put. I don't put up with that, which is weird because we're very aggressive field for a church. So there's that. Any issues? Most fields run about 10 to 20 minute matches, and that, if you DM me, I will gladly give you a copy of our SurveyMonkey data. Gladly. That says like what players want, what kind of guns they're using, how many reps they'd like on a field. I will gladly give you all of our SurveyMonkey data to help you guys out for free. I don't care. I'll just give you a little read. There's a link that I can send you, and then it's like the read writes to the survey results. I'll gladly give it. In fact, I'm probably going to do that after this video. So there's that. Looking, 10 to 15 minutes is about the average for rental players. If you give a rental player one magazine and it's a high cap at about 350, 400 BB capacity, they'll usually be empty in about 8 to 10 minutes because they shoot everything all the time. That's just, they have no trigger control. They're just like, whatever. It's the game. Anything beyond 15 minutes and players get grumpy, fights start, refs get real lazy after a while. Like some fields will do 40-minute matches, and 20 minutes into it, 80% of the players walked off the field just because they're bored. They want to do something else. So then you have it starts like 20 on 20, 15 minutes later, like 8 kids have walked off from one team. Like that, there goes your match right there, and it just gets real ragey. Another thing I recommend, and this is big. There is this theme we see in Airsoft where there is no such thing as an Airsoft field that has paintball fields. It is always a paintball field that also has an Airsoft field, meaning the Airsoft piece of that field is always neglected. It is the biggest complaint from players that I get from guys that play at Hollywood Sports Park down in SoCal. Like the complaints I always hear is the Airsoft field is always neglected. The ref staff is bad because they're paintball refs. They don't care. They sort of threw the line out, and if they can get money from it, they get money from it, which is interesting because, and here's what I believe is proof. If you look at the Instagram for Hollywood Sports Park, look at the amount of paintball posts versus the amount of Airsoft posts. Also, if you look at the owner, Bear something, who I admire. This isn't a hit on him. I admire this man. I love him. I love Bear. I want one of those shakes, and I want one of those magic burgers. But all the celebrities and all the big names that come to Hollywood Sports Park go to the paintball field. They're not playing Airsoft. Could that be because Bear also owns like Giant Tactical, so he's also trying to like get his own brand out there? Okay, maybe that is possible. But point being, if LeBron James, if Anderson Silva goes to Hollywood Sports Park, they're playing paintball. They're not playing Airsoft, and that's the biggest complaint. Is no one at the paintball fields care about Airsoft. So what I recommend, again, beard hair. I'm not coked up. This is just a lot of beard hair gets up in the snooter. So do not use paintball refs for Airsoft. Don't do it. I'm telling you right now. If you want a good perception in the Airsoft community, hire Airsofters to ref your fields. I'll give you a list of people I recommend. There's plenty of guys that will be quality dudes. I'll help you interview. I'll be on the panel to help interview for Airsoft refs. I would love to do that. I'll do that for free. That sounds like a lot of fun for me. I'm not working. I don't work. I'm not doing it. But hire Airsofters for the Airsoft field. Don't use your paintball guys. Just, even if they're the nicest people in the world, it's got to have a bad perception for a while. You can add them in here and there, but you have to remember you're fighting a stereotype that paintball fields don't give two fuzzy butts about the Airsoft field. So just by opening an Airsoft field, already kids are asking me about this. It's just part of the business. Hire Airsofters as Airsoft refs, and hire an Airsoft tech to fix your rental guns. Also, I don't recommend Valken guns for rentals. I'm not a lot of guys are too keen on Valkens. G&G is where it's at. Excuse me. I would recommend, if you have the ability, G&G Airsoft guns, G&G Airsoft rifles for rentals. Use the combat machines. We use Firehawks, Raiders, and Mod Zeros. And if you guys ever come to the Airsoft Ministry, I'll show you what they look like, and I'll show you why. And you can talk to Ethan, who fixes them all in his home. Ethan loves G&G because they're easy to work on. Valkens can be a little bit trickier with their gearboxes and some of the ways they're assembled. But G&G rifles, in my opinion, are the way to go for rentals. Not Valkens. Not Classic Army. No other. G&G. And they're pretty cheap. Not like cheaply made, like they're really affordable. What I have seen another field do is they will. So apparently Valken has this little charging station that goes into the buttstock. So you can just like put a rifle buttstock first into a charger, and it just charges the rifle right off the bat. So I saw a field take that charging station, and they just bought the charging station themselves and then put them on G&G rifles. That way you don't have to like swap batteries in and out. It's just a huge thing. Or you just say, we're not going to do rentals. We're not going to do rentals for the first year. I'm okay with that. That's just me. GG rifles. I think $20 is a solid entry fee. I was looking on the website. It looks like if you bring your own gear, regular entry is $20. Perfect. Airsoft Ministry is $10, but keep in mind we're a church nonprofit, so that's not fair. Most local fields are anywhere between $20 to $30 for entry. So $20 entry. Your customers are already used to it. You guys are used to it. Keep the $20. Don't raise it. Don't lower it. $20 is perfect. And then if you want to do like entry with rentals, 30 to 40 is about standard. That's about industry standard. No more than $40 for field entry with full rental package. 30 to $40 is pretty much industry standard in California. As you gain success, I would highly recommend doing like Friday evening games. A lot of fields, good fields, are open more than just Saturday, Sunday. I'll put it that way. So in Airsoft, you have, I don't know if you've researched this. Airsoft, you have two major genres of play. So you've got like the Milsim kids, which is kind of like the guys that are dressing up like soldiers and all that stuff. But they want to play Airsoft realistically. They want more of a realism aspect. That the Milsim community also adheres a little bit more stricter to more of a cosplay style. So they will research what branch of military is wearing what piece of gear, things of that nature. Gear is it's cosplay. If you understand cosplay and the importance of cosplay, like how cosplay is valued, like, oh, this is cheap imitation gear, so that's nothing, then that's kind of the same way in Milsim. They also play more objective-based games, like rescue the pilot, capture the flags, things of that nature. Then you have what is usually referred to as Speedsoft, which looks like NXL. Straight up looks like NXL. It's very die mask jerseys. The gameplay is much faster. It's a more aggressive style of gameplay. It's NXL. Straight up. It's airball. In Speedsoft, the big tournament format is called Speed QB, similar to CQB, but it's Speed QB. I've looked online. I don't really see any style rivalry in paintball like you have in Airsoft. For whatever reason, those two worlds, they don't like each other. I didn't really see... I thought Woods Ball might be similar to Milsim. It's not, because I still see players that looks like they jump out of NXL and they're still in the woods. I don't really see I could be wrong, I don't really see a cosplay-influenced style in paintball that matches up with Milsim. So that's something you're going to run into. La, 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 la. I think because Airsoft, specifically Milsim kids, have that heavier cosplay versus the tournament players who are performance-based. That's where a lot of that rivalry comes from. It's they think their style is best. Like, oh, I want to play at realism. Like, why? It's hot outside and there's bugs. Whatever. I think if you clearly define your rules and explain your rules on your website and try and keep newer players from experienced players, you guys are gonna kill it. You're gonna threaten a lot of fields. Because if you look in that area, you're competing with West Coast and Ukas. I'm curious to see what other fields do to respond. I don't think they're going to respond well. I think Ukas is going to have problems, and I think West Coast is going to have problems. I think both fields are going to suffer business. I think they're going to lose business to Cap City, or to Cap Edge. It's personal opinion. Depending on how active in the community you choose to be. Look... You want to see how you should act as a field on Instagram, look at the Airsoft Ministry versus look at West Coast and look at Ukas. The only time Ukas was posting for the longest time was when they were closed or open for weather. That's it. I don't think West Coast Adventure Park has posted on their Instagram in 2-3 years. Meanwhile, CQB City's killing it on Instagram right now, and Airsoft Ministry's killing it on Instagram right now. And we average 80 to 120 players. If we have a free day, we will get 300 to 400 players. It's just how it goes. I've had players leave other fields to come to our, and I'm sure other players left our field to go to theirs, but a lot of guys started coming to my field because we were active on Instagram, meaning our customer service was top-notch, or they believed it. So if they DM'd us a question, well, I got back to them within 20 minutes. It's just, good social media is about good customer service. We were very active with what we were doing. We were active with explaining rules. We were active in interacting with our community to make the overall field better. We tried new game types. We were trying to do all these new and innovative things that our players were telling us, and we were doing them. And because of that, we grew as a field. Two or 3 years ago, if we had 60 players, we thought we were packed to capacity. We were like, oh my God, 60 players. What are we going to do with all these players? Now, if we have 60 players, we're like, oof, it must be really hot out, or we pissed off a group of people, because we'll average 80. 80 players is a slow day for us. Average, last Sunday we had 129, 130, I think. So I like to count. I try and count the roster at the end of every day. So we're getting about 120 players closer now. Once the weather cools down, like maybe towards the springtime, that average will increase, because it's hot as butthole outside right now. I think you could also, because you're a paintball field, I think you can get some tournament airsoft players who are down to drop into some airball matches. If you give me a good marker to borrow, I'll play airball. I'd love to play paintball. That would be. Keep in mind, I'm a CK Fight Life guy. So if I find a reason to buy a pair of those pants, I'm going to slide around on them everywhere. I might bust my cartilage out in my knees, but I'm going to try it. I don't have a problem with paintball. I think it looks like a lot of fun, but it's expensive. So that's what's kept me from the sport. Let me look at my notes. Plus, I will tell you from experience, there are a lot of, specifically dads, there are a fair amount of dads who are playing now that came from a paintball background but quit because it was too expensive for them and they had kids. So now they play Airsoft because it's a fraction of the price. If you get those dads to drop into your Airsoft field and they've already paid the entry fee, maybe you could be like, hey, if you want to play a couple paintball games, here's a rental gun you can borrow, or here's this level gun you can borrow. Maybe you'll start getting back into paintball. Or both. But because you have both markets, I think you can appeal to both markets as long as you don't say that one is better than the other, and as long as you treat the Airsoft field as equally as you treat the paintball field, you're going to kill it. You will set the standard for paintball fields that also want to get into Airsoft. That's an opinion. If you need anything, I have DM'd you my personal phone number. I'll come out there for free and just talk your ears off. You're welcome to come to the Airsoft Ministry in Roseville, California. We're open Sundays from usually 11 to 4, unless the weather is crazy. So like this Sunday, we're going to be open from like 10:30 to 2 because it's supposed to be hot as all the butts outside. I don't work, but I'm telling you right now, you're not going to hire me. I don't work. I don't like it. Anyway, so that's that. And I love all of you guys, and see ya.